are back. You're listening to You Would Think, the Philadelphia Flyers podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Collington, and joining me today, you already know, it's Kevin. How are you, Kevin?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing all right. You know, we're back in the saddle here, and it really is a summer show. We have some contracts to talk about. We've gotten our goalie, at least for the next 3 years. And here we go. You know, let's dive right into it. Carter Hart has signed a bridge deal.
I don't even know if I would I understand why you're classifying it as a bridge deal. Nobody should be surprised by this. I don't understand what's so complicated about this. He had a bad year last year.
Right, he had a bad year, and it's a flat cap. And a couple different people. I'm friends with some fans from around the league, and they kind of asked me my opinion on the deal. And I said, well, here's what it is. It's an overpay for what he gave you last season, and I don't think anybody's going to argue that. He was terrible. Mm-hmm. You're hoping that he bounces back and far surpasses that by the end of the deal.
I got asked about it too, because the first question I got on the radio when this happened was, that's a little high, don't you think? And it's like, well, yes, of course it is. But I sit there, I looked at a bunch of different deals for goalies off of their entry-level contracts.
Right.
And look, Carter Hart's not the best goalie in the league. He's just, he's not.
Not yet. He might be at one point, but he's not right now.
And I don't know if he will or not.
He might.
But the best goalie in the league, in my opinion, Andrei Vasilevskiy, did not start near as many games in his entry-level deal.
Right.
And got $3.5 million when that was over. And that was 4 years ago. Adjust for inflation, you get a deal that was probably $5 million minimum at that time in today's terms. And he had 40-some-odd starts or 60-some-odd starts or something like that. Carter Hart's got 100 games and 95 starts. When you utilize him that much, and his first year was solid, let's call it
fine. Yeah.
He came up, he impressed. People were on that train from the beginning because they were winning with him. And then year 2 came along, and it was game 2, first game in Philly, shutout, great save, all over the highlight reels for years to come. And then it just continued. He continued to put it together and have a really strong season.
He looked really good. Borderline stellar.
He is a product of everything that last year goes against, in terms of if you don't have practice time, if you don't get breaks between your games, especially at his age, if you don't have the time to mentally clear your head, especially when your coach is as old school as they get, then you're going to have issues. And it all went against him. There was never time to break up the how many times can you lose 6-1 before it becomes too much to take for yourself when you go home to nothing. You go home to nobody.
Right.
That's his problem.
And we did hear Alain Vigneault kind of question his mental state to a certain degree this season, and Carter Hart took a couple days off, rode the bench for a couple days, got some rest, maybe got some practice, and came back and started looking good again. So there is definitely evidence to support that Carter Hart, with more rest time, with more time with the staff in the facilities, little rest between games, hopefully Martin Jones isn't terrible and can actually eat some starts. Carter Hart should bounce back here. There's a lot of evidence to support that this deal is going to look pretty good pretty soon.
Well, sure, it could look great next season, honestly. Let's be real. I mean, but this is, I said this after the Martin Jones signing. The gamble isn't on Martin Jones bouncing back for 20 starts or 25 starts or whatever it is. It's on Carter Hart. You want him to be everything that you thought he was 2 seasons ago and continue to grow in that direction. We evaluate every single one of these young players in this way. If you're going into the season and not talking about, well, Travis Konechny had 24 goals 3 years in a row and then fell off a cliff last year. Didn't get it going at all, couldn't get it together. And that's got to change. Joel Farabee took a big step, got to 20 goals. What can he do now that he's going to keep getting older, bigger, all that type of stuff? That's the progression. You want to see the progression continue in the right direction. Now, here's the thing about Carter Hart. The team has had such horrible results at goaltender that he's already one of the best in franchise history to an extent.
I know.
Like, he's had 3 years, and that, not even really. Like, let's be real about this, too. He played half of a year getting called up, because he got called up in December. He played a year that went 69 games, I think is what it was, 68, something like that, whatever it was.
70, somewhere in that range.
Everybody was between 68 and 71.
Right.
Let's be real. But he played something in that range. So, again, not
most
a full
of the
year,
season,
but not a full year of starts.
Right.
He was your starting goaltender without getting a full year of starts. Truthfully,
he would have gotten 5 or 6 of those, at least 5 or 6 of those remaining games. Definitely.
But to give people a number, like out of 82, how many games did he start? Like, we didn't even have that. We had. You got to 70 and the number got cut off.
Right.
And then you had last season out of 56. He got shut down for the last month of the season anyway.
Right.
On top of all the struggles. So he gets 20. I think he had 27 games and 25 starts or something like that in that season, which, again, is not a great number when you think about that's not even half of your games.
Right.
And I get it. He didn't even get a sniff of the ice in the last month of the season, so that's where
that has a lot to do with that. Yeah.
But at the same time, that means that the last, whatever it was, so that means 31 of your starts went between Brian Elliott and Alex Lyon.
Yeah.
Not good.
No. And we ended up seeing a lot of Brian Elliott down the stretch because, like you said, Carter Hart's kind of shut down, and Brian Elliott played a lot. And it's one of those things. You need Carter Hart to come back. And your season, in a lot of ways, your season hinges on it. And we know the defense was poor in front of him last year, and Chuck Fletcher took steps to address that. But it's going to come down to his individual performance is going to have to be better. But
that's why, look, Brian Elliott is a fit in Tampa Bay for that reason. Because you don't want him to start.
And you know what? Good for him. Brian, go spend a season in your late 30s on the beach and go win deep in the playoffs, maybe win a cup.
Right. Now,
good for him.
Now, listen, here's the other thing, too. Like, because I know the Martin Jones signing was I don't want to call it a weird one, but, like, people didn't know.
It was a weird one.
Well, but people didn't know why you would bring in a guy who arguably had worse numbers than Brian Elliott did.
Yeah,
right?
No kidding.
And look, Braden Holtby didn't want to be here. That's the bottom line. Like, they would have loved to have added Braden Holtby, but he didn't want to. He had his mind set on the Western Conference. He went there. Okay, that's fine. I think Yaroslav Halak would have been a fit here. It's just I think it's a guy who had his mind made up.
Right.
I'm going to Vancouver. That's just the way it is. I already know where I want to go. Done deal. And then everybody else got a 2-year deal or more, or was too high of a cap hit.
Right.
So literally, you were left with no options other than what is the safest, low risk in terms of I have it for a year, and it's under $2.5 million because I'm going to pay the other guy $4 million. I think this was already in the works too.
Right.
If
of course.
It was already in the works to an extent. Then where this conversation was going, and you go.
You're doing those numbers together for sure.
And I don't think you want to pay more. Like, we've had this discussion in the group chat a lot about the combined salary of your top pairing when you look at some of these other salaries that defensemen are going to get, what the average annual value is for some of these defensemen around the league. Dougie Hamilton's making $9 million this year. Seth Jones is going to make $9.5 million starting next year. Zach Werenski starting next year is going to make $9.58.
Just a little bit more than Seth Jones.
Right, just to one up Seth Jones. But the bottom line
is the funniest thing.
And then you keep going further and further, and here's a guy with 10. Here's a guy with here's Drew Doughty with 11. Here's Erik Karlsson with 11.5. And the Flyers are paying their entire top pairing $13 million.
It's still absurd to me that Seth Jones is going to make more than Cale Makar, but that's a whole different issue.
Cale Makar's 22. That's also why. Like, whatever he just signed for, wait until he's not even really in his prime yet. That's the
I know.
Like, that's the scary part.
And the deal is long enough that the cap should have some flexibility to open up towards the end of it, and he's going to get paid.
Well, we keep saying that. Let's see what happens. But
listen, I'm attempting to be optimistic here.
But I'm with you. I hope that there was at some point in time through all the other stories about what the league could look like next year, because there's a lot more starting to come to light a little bit. I would say that if there was a story I think that said might be room for like $1 million next year or something.
I did hear that.
And it's like, if that is able to happen, that's great. Any little bit will help, certainly. I mean, let's put it this way. One of the things, and we didn't write a tab for it because I don't think it's needed. It's just kind of an overall scope of things. They're going to have 10 free agents next year. based on what I can see anyway. And I'll pull up Cat Friendly really quick.
Sure.
I actually squeezed Cat Friendly into a radio spot this week because of this week. Yeah, it was this week. It was Monday when this deal went down. So, but I did because I'm like, listen, I was trying because one of the things I was trying to explain was because people were wondering what is, and I guess maybe we can start to go towards this one. We talked about Carter Hart's deal, so we can start to go to this one
for sure.
Which was, what is Travis Sanheim going to get? Because he's the last piece of this puzzle for right now. There's nothing else that they really can do outside of just bringing back Travis Sanheim. Their cap at this point says they have basically $4 million. It's $4 million with change by $1 million standards. Let's call it that.
Yeah, I sure would. I wouldn't know what to do with $31,000, but I'm sure they do.
I'm not trying to profess that I've got money by any stretch, but when you're trying to work towards a house, $31,000 doesn't change a whole hell of a lot in the grand scheme of things. Like, it's nice, but it's going to go to the same spot. Let's
put it this way: if we added it to your down payment, you'd be pretty happy about it.
Oh, well, exactly. But I'm saying it doesn't exactly go towards, I'm going to splurge on something gigantic. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you might be able to get like one extra feature.
Okay, for that possibly. Yeah, I'll give you that.
There you go. And that covers your closing costs. There you go.
Yeah, we'll see. There's look, I'm just getting started that process. So there's a whole lot that I need to figure out with that. All right, so anyway,
looking forward to next year.
So here's the deal. Like, I'm looking at, there's 3 players who make roughly the same amount of money that are all considered to be on the active roster, and they all will not be on the active roster come September, October.
Right.
Because right now, Cap Friendly lists Tanner Laczynski, Morgan Frost, and Jackson Cates all as players who would make the team.
And I don't imagine that all 3 of them are making it.
Well, and that gives them 14 forwards. I actually think that there's a chance that 2 of them don't make it, and one of them is replaced by Wade Allison.
Okay.
So that way, all right, but still take $900,000 off the books.
As long as one of them isn't replaced by Nate Thompson, I'm happy.
Well, Nate Thompson's going to be Nate Thompson's going to be part of this picture because he will be on the active roster. You're paying him the $900,000 that he's making.
I just hope it's 800. I just hope he's not part of the active lineup.
I still think he will be at the beginning, but I hope. But here's what I hope. I hope that he's your 4th line center on day 1 because you want to play somebody more to start with, like. That I can understand. If you don't want to start Tanner Laczynski there and say, go play in the AHL, go play with the Phantoms for a month, right. and let's see who emerges, because it's not going to be just him. Maybe it is Jackson Cates.
Maybe it is.
And I don't look. And I'm not saying I don't think that Jackson Cates is going to be there. I'm just saying that you want somebody young to emerge. I think is the bottom line. And if that means Nate Thompson's got to start, look, the first month of the season, if you want to just get through the 2 weeks of October that you're playing, it's 7 games.
Yep.
I can live with Nate Thompson for 7 games to start the year to get into a rhythm until you realize, it's usage within the game too. I mean,
that's true.
I don't mind if you find a way to shelter somebody. I don't know if you know who yet, but if you find a way to shelter somebody, you can start playing him on that spot.
Maybe one of the young
later
kids.
later in a game.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it will be a young kid because I can't pinpoint a young kid who's going to play center.
You don't think Morgan Frost ends up in the center?
I think he might be your 3rd line center, honestly.
Oh, that's what I'm worried about.
That's what I'm saying. Like, there's a chance he'd have to really come in and impress. That's my thing. Like,
I think with a little more development, Laczynski could play center at the NHL level, but I'm not 100% on it. And I know he's 24, so I don't know how much more development there is on him.
I was literally doing this yesterday because if I go through, I think that Daily Faceoff currently has a first line of Couturier, Giroux, and Konechny. A second
2/3 of that line is up next year, by the way.
Well, yeah, but we're not getting there yet.
Okay.
And then a second line would be Hayes, Farabee, and Atkinson. And then your 3rd line was, I think, Lawton centering Van Riemsdyk and Allison. Your 4th line was Thompson centering Lindblom and Aube-Kubel.
Okay.
Which leaves about right. Which leaves basically one of those 3 names that we just mentioned as your extra.
Right.
Essentially. I don't know how helpful that is to somebody in their early 20s trying to make a name for themselves.
Sitting on the bench.
I mean, at that point in time, there better be somebody else who you bring in or bring up for the purpose of you're perfect for that role. You know what I mean? Like, Like, give me, I don't even know, because I'm looking at this, like, give me Connor Bunnaman to be the 13th then, and all three of them go to the minors. Like,
Right.
if that's the way you're going to play. And actually, quite honestly, I wouldn't
That's not
care
a bad idea.
I wouldn't care if you swapped Connor Bunnaman in as your fourth line center half the time. At least I feel like he could be mildly effective if you utilized him in that lower role. He's a younger player.
I think he'll contribute to the game plan better than Nate Thompson will a lot of the time.
Potentially.
So we're looking at.
Anyway, back to the contracts, because we're talking about guys who are up, basically.
Right.
So Martin Jones is a 1-year deal, so you're back in the same boat, kind of. I mean, you could, if Martin Jones has a really good year and gives you what you want out of a backup, there's no reason you wouldn't bring him back if that happens.
For sure. Yeah, I don't mind. If he looks decent, I don't mind giving him the one at a time.
But you're taking the bet, and you have two solutions to the bet not working out. Because your two solutions are either one of these young goalies that you're going to have in the minors this year now that Alex Lyon is no longer part of the picture. So Felix Sandstrom's getting starts. Kirill Ustimenko's getting starts. Sam Erson's probably going to make an appearance somewhere in there also.
Hopefully.
So you've got three guys who you're basically trying to see if one of them could emerge to be a young backup. And basically what you're going to do, and it's a little weird to say because Carter Hart's only going to be 24 years old when that would happen because he's 23 now. So he'd only be 24, but you would almost be taking one of these other guys and kind of going the Pecorino Yossi Saros model and going, here's a guy who's going to be younger but not start for a while. But he's going to be up. He's going to be the backup, and he's literally going to just work with the NHL team, and he's going to get thrown into games 25, 30 times a year.
Right. And
potentially.
If things go well, you end up with, the 2020 Vegas Golden Knights with Robin Lehner and Marc-Andre Fleury, and one of them wins the Vezina.
Well, and look, and Martin Jones, that could be Martin Jones if he has a good year. Like, if he has a good year, you bring him back and you do the same thing. Maybe give him another year and go, all right, we'll wait another year for it. Or if you don't like Martin Jones, go out and look for one of the other goalies who hit the free agent market and do the exact same thing all over again.
So one thing I didn't realize, I could have sworn up, down, left, right, sideways.
Okay.
That Martin Jones was like at least 34.
No.
How on earth has he been around for 1 billion years, is a goalie, and is still only 31?
I said the same thing about Erik Karlsson, okay? Because Erik Karlsson, I thought for sure was 35 years old, given all the injuries, given all of the wear and tear, given the fact that at this point it feels like his contract is this total albatross and all that stuff. And he's 31. He's the same age as Martin Jones. And I go, wait, really?
It turns out carrying the entire city of Ottawa on your back for several years tends to wear on your ankles.
Trying to also be basically the guy for San Jose. I mean, like, literally that whole team revolves around.
Ain't nobody else doing it.
Well, literally the whole team revolves around that pairing of Karlsson and Burns. Yep. And then in the years while they had a shot, it was basically, here's Pavelski, Couture. I guess Marlowe is still there. I think Marlowe's retiring, though. I don't know if he went back anywhere. He hasn't signed anywhere yet, so I think he's retiring. But
I don't know, man. He might.
Maybe he tries again with San Jose for a year. I don't know.
He loves signing 1-year deals to San Jose so they can flip him to a contender and get assets.
I thought the story though was that he was basically done because he got the record. He got the games played record. It was a kind of a nice way to send him off.
Absolutely.
He's played so much, so maybe that's the end of it. Now, Joe Thornton's not there anymore. That's a weird one, too, by the way. Joe Thornton's not in Toronto anymore either. He's in Florida.
That's a weird one.
It's weird, but here's the thing. Like, I keep getting more and more impressed. I know we're kind of getting a little off topic by talking about other players.
We absolutely are. I'm even going to do one of these.
Because we didn't even really talk about Travis.
We'll go back to it, yeah.
We'll go back to it.
It's fine.
But, Florida keeps making these really interesting, low-risk, high-reward potential signings. Like, they've built it pretty well this season. Like, and I don't know. Look, I don't know if anybody is truthfully going to compete with Tampa Bay. It's going to be tough. But Tampa Bay lost some pieces. Let's not gloss over that. David Savard's gone. That's a big one.
Yep.
So you lose David Savard on the back end. Your backup is not Curtis McElhaney anymore. It's going to be Brian Elliott. So, you'll have look. I'm not trying to sit there and say Brian Elliott can't give you what you want for 20 games, but you still got it's still 20 games, and if Vasilevsky's having even the slightest rough patch, you don't want to have to lean on him at all.
Not for any extended period of time, no.
And then forward wise, Yanni Gourde, Blake Coleman, Barclay Gaudreau all go to different teams. Tyler Johnson got traded. It's interesting. And
yeah, but I'm
no,
looking
I mean, like, it's funny because they're going to. They traded. Didn't they trade for Seabrook? Isn't that who they traded for?
the Lightning did. The Lightning did to bury his money. Yeah.
Bury his money. So they have money, but look, I don't underestimate the power of losing an entire third line that was one of your most effective in the playoffs. Like,
Right.
I get it. You've got a ton of star talent. Braden Point's at the top. Nikita Kucherov's at the top. Steven Stamkos is at the top. And guess what you're going to have this year that you didn't have last year? You're going to have all three fully healthy for an entire year.
Right, but take a look at you got to remember we're back in the regular playoff format.
Yes.
And you're looking at the Atlantic Division, and you're looking at a Toronto Maple Leaf team that they're either going to win the Stanley Cup or completely implode. It's one or the other. They're kind of pushed to the limit. The Boston Bruins...
Well, we know what the trend is, so...
Right. The Boston Bruins are starting to show early signs of their core crumbling, I think. I think Tuukka Rask has a lot to do with that, and through no fault of his own. I think there are some cracks in Boston, and I think Florida looked at the division, and they see a divisional spot available. You know, Montreal isn't necessarily the strongest team. I know they just made that run, but they're not the strongest regular season team.
Montreal lost valuable pieces. Let's be
Yeah, they did. And I think you look at the division and you see a weakness, and you go out and you get Sam Reinhart. You go out and you get Anthony Duclair. You go out and you get Carter Verhaeghe, Joe Thornton, Brandon Montour.
Well, if you're Florida, here's the thing you've got to ask yourself, because you're at a really important crossroads right now with two key things that you've done earlier than all of this stuff. First of all, you brought in a Hall of Fame head coach that was supposed to take you to the next level. You don't just bring in a 3-time Cup winner with the Chicago Blackhawks and go
And expect to be mediocre.
And not expect to, exactly,
Right.
and not expect to make playoff runs. That's how that works. And then you make the addition, you go out and you get Bobrovsky. And now you're at a crossroads with that one because of the fact that basically what's the better method here? Based on the playoffs, sure seems like the better method here is to start riding the coattails of Spencer Knight and move forward with this. You've got a kid who could be one of the best in the league in a few years, so why not start right now? You know what I mean? And this is
We talk about expensive backups. Sergei Bobrovsky, the Florida might be about to have a very expensive backup.
sure, but that's what you get for drafting, kind of, in a way, like for drafting the way you did. You drafted a goalie, you took that chance, you knew what you were going to need. And look, I'm of the belief that that Sergei Bobrovsky plays a style, in my opinion anyway, that was not going to make him very good in his mid to late 30s. He's
Correct.
He's very desperation saves are great. We love to see them.
But they rely on athleticism that doesn't hold up in your 30s.
Exactly. Like, I sat there and looked, and if you would have asked me to go down the list of goalies the Flyers could have signed, for example, we're kind of going back to the Martin Jones thing a little bit in this, but it fits. If you would have asked me, because a lot of people are like, Jonathan Bernier would be great. And I sit there and I go, I'm not saying he doesn't have ability, but is the guy ever healthy? I feel like every time I look, he's injured. But then someone will bring up James Reimer, and I go, well, gee, didn't he get hurt a decent amount? And then you can bring up anybody else. I'm saying, like, after a while, what you start to realize is that all goalies have health liability to some extent, because it's a demanding position physically. Yep. So anybody can get hurt at any point because of what they have to try to do. That's what the job entails. Yeah. So you can't worry about health per se. I mean, let's this way. We could say that about Brian Elliott, but Brian Elliott didn't get hurt last year.
Listen, they're the ones who voluntarily signed up to get pelted with vulcanized rubber.
Right. And, look,
goalies are built different.
Here's what we had to say. Look, 'cause I'm looking at Florida's cat friendly now instead. Here's what we had to say about Florida before, because we even said the best kept secret in the league, or so we thought. One of the most we can't call him underrated anymore, because once you win the Selke, you're not underrated anymore. Like, you've made it to a level where, like, we can't talk about it like that. And that's Alexander Barkov. Like, now you've got that's your legit superstar talent. You've got Huberdeau with them. So you're going to have talent there. Reinhardt's going to fit right in there. You've got younger players who can start to come up nicely.
Man, the one thing I'm worried about for them.
Go ahead.
Alexander Barkov's a UFA after this year. Not only that, Not only that, they have to re-sign some RFAs. And look at the Keith Yandel buyout penalty. The Keith Yandel buyout penalty this year, $2.3 million.
That's a rough
next
one.
year it is $5.4 million of dead cap. In the same season, you have to sign Alexander Barkov. Good luck. I don't know. I think Patrick Hornquist has 1 year left in Florida. I'll tell you that much. Somebody's got to go.
I'm trying to look and see if I can find the easy piece to let go.
It's probably makes sense to be 34-year-old Patrick Hornquist at that point.
What you might have to do to make that work then is, and he's been a decent player for them at times, I think you part ways with Frank Vetrano then.
I was looking at Frank Vetrano also. Oh yeah, I think he's also up after this year, so that doesn't actually clear you up any more money.
No, but I'm saying that's where you utilize what you would have spent to keep him to keep Barkov, because you can't.
I think it's going to cost a lot more than that.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I agree. It's just
I think that Barkov number might he could push 9. No, maybe 8.
8 sounds reasonable.
Okay, and obviously depending on the kind of year he has, if he wins another Selke, he's getting 9.
I'm trying to see also if there's like a guy on this team like. Hornquist is probably your obvious either try to trade him or buy out.
Yeah. Or I know you just signed that Carter Verhaeghe extension, but you might have to trade that too.
Let's put it this way. They're not only paying a buyout for Keith Yandel, but they're still paying a buyout for 2 more years of Scott Darling.
Yeah, but that's at least the same number. They know what they're working with. I'm talking about
the same number, but like
that spike in the Keith Yandel is rough, though.
It is, but see, the thing with the Darling one to me, what burns them there is that that's what I would have used to buy out like a Patrick Hornquist at that point. If that means that's what I got to do to keep Alexander Barkov long term at the price that you want.
Don't forget, this is their last year of cap recapture penalty on Roberto Luongo. Because cap recapture is still a thing. Looking at you, Shea Weber.
All right. Well, listen. How much? Okay. So it says they have $14.5 million in cap space going like for next year, but that's with 14 players on the roster and 21 player contracts.
Right. And you got to re-sign guys like Owen Tippett.
Tippett won't demand much though.
And he could have a good year though. Depends on who he's playing with.
He still won't demand much more. Like he's
fair.
He's gonna get the classic. Here's 3 years, $3 million.
Here's a bridge deal, right?
Pretty much. Like there's no reason to expect anything different for that. I don't worry about guys like that. Like in the same sense, like Mason Marchment had a decent year last year too, and I wouldn't expect him to get much more of an increase off of $800,000 than you're going to like 2.5, 3 mil.
Hey, listen,
you'll make millions, but you're not going to make more. Like those two are going to cost them maybe $4 million, and then defensively, lucky for them, they don't really have any bad pending contracts. They have 2.
Right.
So they can bring back 5 defensemen and both goalies without really having to tap into that $14.5 million. So basically, your tough decisions are a bunch of guys who are signed to who are signed for 1 year at the forward position that either let's just say expiring contracts. Are you gonna bring back Joe Thornton? And if you do, is it gonna cost you more than $1 million to do?
No.
Like Joe Thornton's at the point of his career where if he feels like they're doing well enough that they've got a shot to win and they don't win this year, he comes back for the $1 million or $900,000 because he goes, why not?
Well, and I think the fact that he signed there is a pretty good indicator that they expect to be good, and they were able to sell Joe Thornton on the fact that they're going to be good.
And by the way, on Barkov's potential contract, it's Florida, no income tax.
That's true.
So you can go a little less on the cap hit because they'll get more of that money.
Well, now we're going to find out. Do guys sign for less in Tampa Bay because it's Florida and there's no state tax? Or do guys sign for less in Tampa Bay because they're Tampa freaking Bay?
Well, I'm sure that plays a factor into it for now. Why not? I mean, they're the best team in the league. But I have to look because Tampa didn't go out and really sign anybody, did they? They didn't sign anybody drastic this offseason.
They acquired yeah.
But Corey Perry's another one of those guys though who maybe he fits in on your third line, but he doesn't replace 3 players.
No, for sure. But the thing is, they're so good. They have enough guys coming up that they're just going to replace their entire bottom six with guys on ELCs who are just going to be fantastic.
Well, we've said that. They develop really well. That's for sure.
It's infuriating because it's the kind of thing that I do in NHL 21 when I just like, oh yeah, I don't need my bottom six. You want $3 million? No, leave. Instead, I'll call up my AHLer and he'll still have 20 goals. Like, it's just how it works.
I mean, we'll see. Like, look, we'll see because their third line now, at least by my gathering anyway, because you got Kucherov, Stamkos, Point. That makes it easy. And then Cirelli, Palat, and Killorn. There's your top six. It's always been your top six. Nothing's changing about your top six.
And they're so good, your bottom six isn't really all that important.
Pretty much. I mean, what I'm saying is you replaced Yanni Gourde, who else am I thinking of? Barclay Goodrow and Blake Coleman with Corey Perry and Pierre-Edouard Bellemare.
Flyers legend Pierre-Edouard Bellemare.
By the way, both of which are on 35-plus contracts.
Man, Pierre-Edouard Bellemare and Brian Elliott are both going to win cups.
I don't know if they're going to be able to win a third one because look here, and I'm not saying like on paper they have every reason to possibly be able to do it. You have to get out there and play the games and see who stays healthy.
I also don't know how Pierre-Edouard Bellemare managed to not win one in Vegas because they were close several times while he was there.
Well, all right, let's see. How do you not win a cup in Vegas? Well, okay, year one was interesting because they really looked like they were destiny in that first year.
They really did. The save by Braden Holtby.
Yeah, probably.
You know the save I'm talking about.
Sure, that could be the difference. Okay, so let's go. Let's keep going then. So
year two, 5-minute major.
Right, year two, it's the 5-minute major, which is a questionable call. So there you go with that.
A bad call. No. Don't call it questionable. It was a bad call where the ref called the result, not the play.
Fine. All right, whatever.
Okay.
I'm not getting into that. We're not here for that discussion today. But all right, fine. So you have that. So it was the 5-minute major that year. Then they got to then it was year three. They got to the conference finals, and that was just, look, it's bubble life meets, look, if a team
that one's a clean loss.
But if a team got on a roll in the bubble, a team got on a roll in the bubble. Like
sure.
There's really nothing that changes the momentum. Like you have to go into the what is it? You have to go into the fortress. Like nobody had to go to the fortress that year.
Right, and there was no
that mattered. It probably did matter.
That mattered, like positively for them. That place is home ice advantage, 100%.
Dallas legitimately got to that final by who they played because they went through Colorado first. Like, let's be real. They went through Colorado and then Vegas and got to a cup final, and were 2 games away from winning against a team like Tampa.
I don't know if last year's Dallas team gets enough credit.
Well, I don't know if, okay, you're talking about the team from 2 years ago, realistically, by saying last year.
Bubble Dallas.
Right. I don't know if last year's Dallas team is actually the real Dallas team. I think it's
I agree. I think you also remember that they missed their first 3 weeks because of COVID. Like, they were behind from the jump. There were periods of time where teams had 15, 20 games played, and they had, 4.
Right. So, that it's exactly. And, well, who did they win a game or play a game? Didn't they play Detroit and have, they were the team that had 40 shots and Detroit had 6 and were winning still somehow?
I think that's true. Oh yeah, I think I remember that happening.
Eventually Detroit lost in a shootout or something like that. But it was they were winning 1-0 and they had 6 shots on goal in 2 periods.
Yep.
And Dallas had 35 and then was pushing 50 by the end of the game and somehow only won in overtime.
Yeah, and you hear about that kind of big, deep exhale after a team loses in the Cup Finals, and it tends to carry over into the next season. And I think that goes doubly when you consider the circumstances of this past offseason.
Sure. There were things that changed. I mean, Corey Perry was a big part of that Dallas team and then goes to Montreal. You lose one of those types of guys. I mean, your goaltending situation was going to be a little different because now you had to actually bring back Anton Hudobin as your guy.
Corey Perry pulling the old Marian Hossa, switching teams to try to keep losing Cup Finals.
Oh yeah, that's why he's in Tampa now. If you can't beat him, join him.
Well, listen, if I'm a Tampa fan, I'm very nervous now.
Here's the funny thing, though. So Corey Perry's doing this because I don't believe. I mean, Hossa did it for several years and was on the losing team all the time, though.
He went 08. He went 08. He was in Pittsburgh when they lost to Detroit.
Right. Then
09. He was in Detroit when they lost to Pittsburgh, and then 2010 he finally won it in Philly.
But that was his first, right?
With a goal that didn't go in, by the way.
No, it did.
No, it didn't, Kevin. Shh.
the evidence.
Yes, that was his first. He was chasing his first cup.
So here's the difference for me. It's not like Corey Perry is at the end of a career where he's never won a cup.
Yeah, but he's looking for that capstone.
I get it, but then to me, there's something to be said then about Ryan Getzlaf staying in Anaheim as opposed to a team where he could possibly win. Like, honest to goodness, wouldn't it have been no surprise at all if Getzlaf takes a veteran maximum deal or veteran minimum deal to go to Tampa and play with Corey Perry again?
No, I wouldn't be surprised at all. And you talked about needing a third line, like
right, like you could have brought him in and said, "There's your third line center." Like, and I'm not saying that that's what Tampa was thinking. It's just like would it have been believable? Absolutely would have. Like, and instead, Getzlaf goes back to Anaheim, and he probably won't win a cup like he would hope to.
Well, here's what I think the difference is.
2 years ago, the year they played Nashville, they were right there at the end. They were in a conference final.
Here's what I think the difference is. I think Ryan Getzlaf is a no-doubt Hall of Famer at this point in time.
Really?
Yeah. If you include his international play, and then voters tend to look at that sort of thing favorably, I think Ryan Getzlaf is a pretty no-doubt Hall of Famer, and I think Corey Perry is on the border. And I think he's looking at it and going, man, one more cup might get me there. And I don't know if he's looking at it consciously or if he just wants to go win another cup, but I think one more cup gets him there.
Maybe it's the last 3 years that are doing this for me, potentially, with Getzlaf then, because I didn't realize how many points he had.
He was insane.
He was. No, but
Yeah.
do you know what it is? It's longevity for him, because he's never had a season more than 91 points, but he's 18 away from 1,000.
Yeah. And he's probably going to hit it this year.
Right. And he's up over 1,000 games. Like, you know what else it is too? Okay, here's another reason why you don't think this way. Because when Ryan Getzlaf has near 1,000 points, but only has 279 goals, so he's not that player. That's what it is.
That's fair.
Like right now, what is the fascination? And I don't know if we actually on the last show, because this might have happened within the last two. No, it didn't. It happened before free agency, so never mind. But we had so much to talk about flyer-wise with free agency, we didn't even talk about this. When Alex Ovechkin re-signed for 5 years and literally is sitting there saying, you know what, here it is, this could, like, essentially it's almost as if he's saying, here are the final 5 years of my career, and I'm totally going for it.
Come see me while you can.
And I don't need to say what it is, because everybody knows what it is.
Yep.
I'm going for it. I'm probably going to get it, and here's the final 5 years of my career. And, done deal.
Done deal.
Like,
yep.
And like that's where we are. But we look at that with fascination, because what is it? It's goals. He does the scoring. So a guy with 730 goals in his career who needs 163, isn't it, like 165 to get there? So he needs to average 33 for the rest of his career.
When's the last time he had less than that?
He'd have to get hurt to average less than that.
I'm actually going to look this up, because I'm curious when the last time Alexander Ovechkin scored less than 33 goals. I don't know if it's happened. Like, didn't he score more than that in the 48-game season?
Might have.
But yeah, I mean, it's insane to me that not only did Alex Ovechkin sign for 5 years at this stage, but that it was at that number. Like, he's making $9.5 million for 5 more years. That's a lot of money.
Is that what he's making?
I think, is it not?
I thought it was not something else. It's
9.5 for 5 years.
Well, he's still one of the best goal scorers in the league, though. That's
he's worth every penny. I'm not. Yes, and
there's a difference between not being worth the money that you think you're going to get, like, down the line, and being possibly the greatest goal scorer of all time. I mean, if let's this way, if Wayne Gretzky was 35 years old and was going to play until 40 and had 5 years left and was still giving you goal scoring numbers like this, because Gretzky tapered off toward the end too.
He certainly did.
But if he was still giving you numbers like that, wouldn't you pay him close to what the highest forward in the league was making? Sure.
You're not wrong. All right, so Alex Ovechkin, 24 goals this past season. So he did not score 33 this past season. Again, he only played 45 games.
Well, he had all that time on the COVID list. That's another part of the problem. So
in the 48-game season, he had 32 goals. That's the last time he failed to score more than 33. Although he did only have 33 in 2016-17. So, he hasn't been quite as consistently at that 40 level as I thought.
That's got to be a really interesting year then for him, because he plays in every game in the season, so it's not like he missed time to get that low. It just was... I don't know what would have been... like, and that was the year before the Cup year, so...
Right.
I'm curious as to maybe... not what changed, but I don't recall there being anything that made it any different than any other year he played. I don't recall there being a reason why he was so...
Didn't Nick Backstrom miss a huge part of one of these seasons?
Maybe.
Maybe it was that year. Because honestly, I think that pairing is a little underrated.
Nick Backstrom did not miss time that year.
Did he not? Okay.
TJ Oshie missed 14 games.
Okay, that probably helped.
John Carlson missed 10. Andrei Burakovsky missed, 18?
Okay. So they were banged up.
Guys.
They were banged up.
Well, and then there's other guys who got better as or not got better, but became bigger pieces as the year went on, and bigger pieces on that Cup team the following year. Jacob Vrana played 21 games as a 20-year-old.
That was the year he was just kind of breaking in.
They acquired Kevin Shattenkirk for the last 19
he was
games.
A huge part of that run.
Well, this was the year before the Cup run.
Well, right, but he ended up being a huge part of that team.
And who else? I'm missing if there even is anybody, because I don't really see anybody else that.
But the rest of these numbers are just absurd. 52 goals, 65 goals, 56 goals.
There's no reason to believe for all the years he's pushed 50. Literally last season and that 16-17 season you're bringing up are the only 2 years he hasn't even challenged.
Right.
Challenged.
Because, reminder, the year the world shut down, the COVID year, the 68-71 game year we were talking about earlier, Alexander Ovechkin had 48 goals in 68 games.
With 14 games to go, he was going to challenge 60.
Yes. He was on a good pace for 60 just with the way Alexander Ovechkin tends to play. Because when he gets hot, he gets hot.
There's nothing, there's nothing left for him to do other than chase this record.
Then just score goals.
And see if it equates to Washington still good enough collectively as a team to make another run potentially.
Yep.
That's all that's left at this point.
And you know what?
Try to see if your team can win with you as one of their top players still at the end of your career, and go for the record. That's all that's left.
By the end of the 5-year deal, all you need to be able to do is skate to the circle and shoot. That's all you need to do. That's all you need Alexander Ovechkin to do at that point, especially if he's getting there, especially if he's chasing.
Well, because exactly. That's the thing. You're sitting there going, oh, but what happens if over the 5 year, whatever? You can put him out there on one leg on the power.
What happens if he
stand in your spot and he'll still score goals?
What happens if he breaks Wayne Gretzky's goal record? That's the only question you need to ask yourself as the Washington Capitals. What if he breaks Wayne Gretzky's goal record while wearing a C for your jersey? That's all you care about.
No, you care about two things at this point with that on top of it, because you're right. You're saying, what if he does it wearing the C on your jersey?
All the other what ifs do not matter. What if he sucks? What if he can't skate? It doesn't matter. Right. What if he breaks this record in your jersey?
I think that the big thing for him is not only are you trying to see if you can't win with him and the rest of this team that you've got for the last 5 years that he's around, and not only are you seeing if he breaks this record, but I think there's something important to him, unlike Gretzky, and it's not anything that's of Gretzky's fault. But I think you want to sit there and look kind of in the same vein as a Mario Lemieux. He's a lifetime captain.
I think I know where you're going with that. Yeah.
That's what I think you want out of this. Is if he's gonna do this, he's gonna have done it from day one in the same place.
All right. Does Alexander Ovechkin retire as a Capital?
Yeah, absolutely.
Does Sidney Crosby retire as a Penguin?
I think so. I think that one might be a little bit more up for debate than the other one. See, here's the thing. Does Ovechkin,
before you, one more thing.
Okay.
I need a firm yes or no here.
Okay.
Does Claude Giroux retire as a Flyer?
I really don't like this question because I've seen it floated around a lot.
And I know you don't know the answer, right? None of us know, and I know your opinion on this can change, but as of this moment...
Here's the reason why I can't give you a yes or no answer to an extent. No, just hear me out. So much depends on this upcoming season for that answer. Because truthfully, if you have another year like last year, after doing all of the stuff you did,
trade him at the deadline.
Maybe, but what I'm saying is that if you have another year, see, here's the problem: they're not going to trade him at the deadline, and I'll tell you why.
But you can't let him. You can't risk letting him walk.
No, I'll tell you why. Because they're going to be good enough at the deadline that they're going to think they have a shot.
That's fair.
So that's why they're going to keep him. I'm not saying you're risking him walking for nothing. What you're doing is that you're going, they're still in a race. We need this guy. That's why he stays. But if you don't make the playoffs, I don't know if he comes back. Because I think that, and I know it sounds weird to say, but hear me out.
It sounds terrible to say.
The reason I don't know is because there's a reason why there's 10 free agents next year. Somehow we spun this back to the Flyers. I don't know how.
Hey, listen, we have to get to Travis Sanheim anyway, so this works out.
I know.
This is a good way to get back here.
Here's where I'm at with that. There's a reason why there's 10 free agents after next season, and that is because you've done. If you're in Chuck Fletcher's shoes, you sat there and you went, "I'm going to trade 2 young players, one of which has had a very well-documented career to this point that has not been successful."
But he is a former second overall pick, right, and there is some weight to that.
No, as a high draft pick. Now, granted, and listen, if you follow the breadcrumbs of that whole story, then you should know that was very much a Ron Hextall pick, and there were a lot of people that said, no, take the defenseman. So if Ron Hextall just listened to his scouts, you might not be talking about that story, period.
It's fair.
So, call it what it is. He's not a Flyer anymore, and he netted you a defenseman anyway. So take that for what it is. Right. You also choose to part ways with Phil Myers, who did not have the best year last year. Could turn out to be something really good in Nashville. Who knows? But that's you're taking the established player who is very much in the same vein of what you wanted Phil Myers to be. Different look, not in the same size or anything like that. I'm not comparing them in size or stature or anything like that. I'm saying from an established standpoint, he is a right-handed defenseman who will play top minutes, and that's everything.
Who will make your team better.
And that's everything you wanted Phil Myers to be. That's what he's doing.
Yep.
That's number one. So you go and make that deal. You go out and you make another deal where you take the first-round pick, which, okay, if there's a year to trade it, it's this one. It's kind of unpredictable.
Fair.
Every GM in the league, with the exception of the Buffalo Sabres probably, who had a layup at first overall pick. And
even that they almost managed to bungle.
Right. Well, I think they left you hanging for a while, is what you're saying. Like, there was no going into it. Like, we knew it was definitely going to be him until they actually called his name.
Right, because I mean, you can always count on Buffalo to screw things up, and
there's no guarantee. There's also
there were some whispers that the kid didn't want to play there too. So,
well, and then fair. There's no guarantees that the guy actually pans out in Buffalo.
Right,
but you trade the first round pick because if there's a year to do it, it was this one. I'll give you that.
Yep.
And you trade Robert Haig to get, and there was another pick in there, but you trade.
And then there's the Shane Gostisbehere deal to clear the cap space necessary to make this move. So you did lose more assets than, you lost Shane Gostisbehere a second and a seventh.
But Shane Gostisbehere to me was on his way out anyway. I feel like we've been talking about him being traded for 3 years.
That's fine, but when you use the cap space that you cleared from him to make another trade that kind of falls flat in a lot of fans' minds, that's where it feels bad.
I told you this earlier.
Right.
Look, I didn't love it because of the price. I'm more than willing to watch them play and make a determination on how this guy fits or does not fit after actually watching him play a game wearing a Philadelphia Flyers jersey. I'm not going to go off of, I know what everything says about Buffalo, but let's put it this way. Everything it depends on who you ask, right? If you ask a bunch of hockey scouts, they go, the Flyers have a top 5 D-core in the league. You ask a bunch of analytics people, and they go, I don't like this team. Right? Somewhere down the line, part of it meets in the middle somewhere. I think. I get it. Eye test says one thing, analytics say another. How about we just watch the guy play a game? I've watched people do this, and I was thinking this literally yesterday, because yesterday was a Saturday. For people who don't know, we record on Sundays. And literally watching people go back and forth over it, and I'm sitting here going, it is Saturday, August 14th, and I get it. The world is still not completely normal yet, and there's not a ton, you can't do everything you'd want to, but a lot of people are doing normal things. There's a lot of people who go on vacation, go down the shore, do whatever, right? All that stuff. don't you have anything better to do than sit here with a month and a half? Like, actually, let's make it. I actually meant to say this on the show. I was thinking about this after our last one. So, ironically enough, because we're doing the every other week thing and it's happens to fall in line, it is exactly 2 months until the start of the regular season. It is August 15th. So you have exactly 2 months until October 15th. But here's the point of that. It's 2 months away, and you're not going to have a clear-cut answer until you actually start watching play. And I'll give you, all right, fine. I'll give you 6 weeks because training camp will be underway. Preseason games will be happening. I'll give you 6 weeks because you'll see Rasmus Ristolainen then at some point. We know this. But, like, enough with the on paper, are they better, are they not? Like, we've asked this question. You know, we've done this. Just let it play out once it gets here, but you're going to have to sit back and wait. Like, this is August as we know it right now, you know?
Not much is changing from here to the start of the season.
And listen, I'm not worrying, like, I'm not sitting here saying don't be, like, anticipate the season. Anticipate the season.
I'm very excited.
But be excited, because what you should be excited about more than anything is not whether or not the team is better or not. It's
the fact that I get to watch. The fact that I get to watch all the games on ESPN Plus.
I was gonna say it's the fact. Yeah, I hear you. Look at the thumbs up. It's the fact that it's not the same. This is not last year's team. They didn't run it back very clearly.
No.
So because of that, you can't make like remember what we would do, and we've been doing the show long enough that we can sit there and actually talk about it this way. We would know exactly what the offseason kind of entailed before we would go, okay, so let's start figuring out where they're going to be and what the lines, like, we're trying to do that now, and we really actually don't know, because where do you put?
So much is different.
But it's like, you go, where do
you split up Provorov and Ellis?
No, I don't think you do. But
I think there's an argument that you do. I really do.
Maybe, I don't know.
Because here's how I'm looking at it.
Who are you putting with Provorov then?
I'd like to try Sanheim now that you have a little more stability behind them. If it doesn't work out, maybe you try Ristolainen if he looks decent. I don't mind that.
Well,
you're
definitely
regardless,
starting with Ristolainen there.
No, I agree, and I'm looking at, like, experimentation in the preseason is a big factor here.
I think you tried Sanheim last year and kind of saw what you had, which is why you even made this deal in the first place. That's my thing.
But it's different if they don't have to play all the tough minutes like that pair had to last year.
We'll see.
If you have an Ellis pair behind you with some stability. And my argument is if these guys are playing 26-ish minutes a night, let's say they're playing 45% of the game. They can play 45% of the game together, or Ivan Provorov can play this 45%, Ryan Ellis can play this 45%, and you have an elite goalie, or you have an elite defenseman on the ice for 90% of the game. That's how I'm looking at that.
I understand where you're coming from, and I think
especially when your third pair is going to be not the best. Might have Cam York on it. We'll see how that goes.
It won't have Cam York on it, but it'll be sheltered. I get where you're coming from with the third pairing. It's going to be a sheltered pairing. I think that here's another way that you also shelter that pairing better and utilize your 45% a little bit better too. You don't play Ivan Provorov on the power play next year.
I agree. I absolutely agree with you there.
Keith Yandel should be quarterbacking your top power play unit, and your second unit should probably be Ellis with Ristolainen, because they both can do it.
You don't think Sanheim gets a spot on your second unit?
I don't know. I don't think they love Sanheim on the power play. That's just me.
Man, I would love to see. I think he's got it in him.
But I wouldn't put Provorov out there for that. Because
right. I agree with you there, but I would love to see Travis Sanheim develop into a power play quarterback kind of guy, and maybe Keith Yandel can help him with that, because I think he's got it in him.
I think somebody's got to eventually take the lead there, and I think Sanheim has a better chance than Provorov does. I'll say that much for him. But
I agree.
But that's all. That's about all that I've got with that. Like right now, I would like especially speaking, forget about the second power play defenseman that I gave.
Right.
Or whatever, because the point is that I'm taking Ivan Provorov off of that unit completely to make sure that all I use him for is 5-on-5 and penalty kill.
Yep, and that should see results there.
And again, I'm utilizing him for those tougher matchups. If you're telling me that you can get, let's be conservative here, that you can get 3 to 5 power plays, you average 8 minutes of power play time a night maximum, assuming you don't score. You get like 6 minutes and maybe score 1 or 2.
Yeah, you're cutting probably 4 or 5 minutes off his ice time there.
But you're exactly. So no, you're not. but you're using that 4 or 5 minutes of ice time in a
That's what I mean.
way. Yeah.
You're cutting it there, hopefully to use it elsewhere.
You're allocating it differently. That's what you're doing differently. So
and you know what? I don't mind Ivan Provorov not having to play 31 minutes a night. I'm okay with him dropping down to just playing a ton and not literally all the time.
I still want him to average the 27 he's used to averaging, but I want it to be utilized a little differently.
Okay, fair enough.
Because I do think there's also a mental aspect to playing the power play and trying to be the guy who sets it all up. I don't think he has to be like, and Yandel gives you the thing that Yandel gives you that makes sense for this. And again, here's why I think he'll be top power play, because the history with AV dictates that he could be. Because why not? AV knows he can produce. Because
it's Keith Yandel and Alain Vigneault, right?
But Keith Yandel had 24 assists last season at his age, and had 18 power play points out of 27. You think he's not still a fit on a power play? I think absolutely is, especially if you throw him out there with a Claude Giroux, with
Sean Couturier.
Put James Van Riemsdyk at net front and pick somebody else. I don't care who it is. It could be Konechny, it could be Farabee, it could be Atkinson.
Could be Atkinson.
I wouldn't be shocked. Again, Daily Faceoff had Atkinson with Hayes and Farabee on the second power play. They had Konechny on the first. I think there's a little bit of interchanging mechanism there, but at the same time,
from a fantasy hockey point, I certainly would love to see Joel Farabee get some power play one time. I wouldn't mind him being the fifth on that unit. And you know what? I don't mind him as the trigger man for that unit. You put Farabee on one wall, Giroux on the other, and then the other three pieces are just moving to get them the puck.
Potentially. Here's one thing I really do hope that changes, by the way. I hope that something different about that power play, hopefully, allows Claude Giroux to be opened up a little bit more for the shot. Because I don't think it's that I never think he's afraid to take it. He just never has the clear lane because I think they shadow him more. Because let's put it this way. If Jake Voracek was on your other wall,
he's not shooting.
Exactly. So you don't have to shade him there. So put somebody over there who does take a shot, and maybe it opens up Giroux a little bit more. Now, I'm not saying that that's the way it's going to go, but...
Honestly, that's how Jake scored a lot of his goals, was shooting when people expected him to pass, because he always passes.
Right. So anyway, let's get back to the Travis Sanheim arbitration thing really quick, because it's literally the last order of business. I mean, it's just a matter of what the cost is going to be. They have, if I'm being realistic about it and trying to figure out the logistics of it, they have maybe probably $4.5 to $5 million. It's about what I think he's going to get anyway. I
don't see him getting much more than that.
I think he's worth 4.5. About that. If you had asked me at the beginning, I would have said Carter Hart's going to get 3 to 3.5, and Sanheim's going to get 4.4. Let's just say, because I was trying to work a number. It was under.
Well, no, you gotta do 4.6 because it's his jersey number. You got to work his, or is it 4.406? Is that what we're doing? Because in case you didn't know, Carter Hart didn't sign for $4 million. He signed 0.979, so we could get his jersey number in there. Sorry, I hate that trend.
The jersey number
has
significant meaning to him, and it was a good story when it came out. So I'm not gonna harp on it too much. I didn't look at it like that when I first saw it, but I get why it's okay. I get it.
It's a stupid trend. Matthews did it. Marner did it. I think Seth Jones did it. Like a bunch of people, a bunch of players do it. Did he not just do it? Is that not his?
No, his new contract was 9.5. It was pretty straightforward.
Oh, you're right. It was.
His new number is 4, so there's no number there. Okay, listen. There's also kind of a difference between look. Carter Hart's got 3 years in the bag so far, and one of them was not very good. If you're Austin Matthews and you want to sign a contract that has a 3.4 on the end,
11.634 is what he signed for. By the way,
but by all means, do it. You're going to be a face of the league. Go ahead and do it.
It's just so dumb. It's so dumb.
Toronto's got bigger problems than worrying about if Austin Matthews' cap hit ends with a 3.4.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
You're paying a lot of money to.
You're paying him more than $11.5 million, right?
You're paying a lot of money to a small number of players.
Yeah. So either way, Travis Sanheim, I think we kind of agree that he'll probably come in the neighborhood of $4 million.
And let me just kind of to spell it out to kind of put a bow on this one for now, because we'll have the details on the next show. Because the next show is 2 weeks from now, and the arbitration date is August 26th, which comes right before the show. But I honestly wouldn't be shocked if something came down this week.
If they get a deal.
Early next week. Like, it's going to happen before. I think it's going to happen beforehand because, again, I think they waited to get the Carter Hart deal solidified, so they basically know what they have left, and that's what they're going in for. And I do think the term is important in this too. Like, there's no way when I sit there and I keep saying about 10 free agents next season, that doesn't include Travis Sanheim. Because to me,
you're
there's no
assuming
way
he's not going to sign a
getting-
1 year deal.
He's getting a multi-year deal. If he wanted a 1 year deal, then I think whatever the qualifying offer would have been, he would have signed, and that would have been the end of story.
Right. Well, and like you said, we'll know that contract by next show.
So here's what we're gonna do to kind of put a bow on this. We'll know the answer with the Sanheim contract next time around, and I think the only drama left with that story is what is the deal itself, and does it get as far as arbitration? I think the deal itself is manageable. It's multi-year. It's in the 4 to 4.5 million range, and it does not reach arbitration. I think it's going to be done.
Part of me hopes it reaches arbitration, because my favorite thing about arbitration is looking at the arbitration numbers and seeing how much the player thinks they're worth and how much the team thinks they're worth.
But I don't think that. And then I would say to tease whatever our next show is. This is what we're going to get to next show, and because it's pretty much
because it'll be complete.
Well, not only that, but it will be the last show before September.
Oh, that's weird to say. Oh, how do you just kind of casually said that? Oh no. Oh, that's weird.
Hey, it means we're going to get one step closer. I mean, let's just wait. It's
do we have a training camp report date yet?
No.
Okay.
We do not have any information on that yet.
I imagine we'll probably have that by our next show.
Possibly. Here's what we know at this point too. The first preseason game is September 28th. So do the math on a little bit of that. Give them at least 1 full week.
Okay.
Leading up to. And
so mid-September.
I would say, now you're going to make me pull up a calendar really quick just to see it. All right, so I'm going to, hypothetically, and I have no intel, I do not know the answer, I'm going to say September 17th is a date I would circle on your calendars.
Okay.
Because they usually start these things close to a weekend, and they will not start on the 24th and then go, hey, we had 3 days of practice, game time.
No, definitely not.
To my knowledge, every team is supposed to be getting something in the range of 3 weeks of legit training. Okay, so if 3 weeks is training camp, then maybe
if it's 3 weeks, then we'll definitely have this news by our next show.
Well, but 3 weeks could very well be the 24th then, because from the 24th it is 3 weeks until the opening night game for them.
Okay.
So maybe you're I mean, those preseason games are scattered. Let's be real about that. They're playing 6 preseason games, and then they're going to have near a week off because the NHL regular season starts on the 12th of October, and the Flyers don't play a game until the 15th.
Right.
So that gap buys you 3 extra days. So maybe you do start your training camp that close to a preseason game.
Yeah, we'll see.
And say get into it. I mean, look, it's not here or there or whatever. So.
Well, like I said, I think we might have some of that information for our next show. But the Travis Sanheim news, like we talked about, will probably break in between this show and the next. And when it does,
most definitely will.
And when it does, it'll probably drop tomorrow morning because that's how these things go.
I wasn't going to say it, but okay.
And when it does, you can find that information on Kevin's Twitter at Kevin_Durso. While you're over there, make sure to follow the show at YWT Podcast. And
are we sure it's going to break tomorrow because it's the day after the show, or is it going to break over the weekend when I'm not around?
Ooh, good one. When do you leave?
Okay, well, hold on. Here's all right. So
because it's going to break 10 minutes after you leave your house.
Okay, hang on a minute. So here's what's going to happen. So because Carter Hart just signed this Monday, I was in Virginia when that happened. I was on vacation.
Perfect.
So exactly. Like I woke up, saw that it was becoming a done deal, and I'm like, oh well, now I got to see what happens. And literally from vacation, I wrote the story, got that out there, had to hop on his press call at 4:00 in the afternoon, and then did a radio spot at 4:40, and I'm on vacation.
Love it.
So it was,
Love the hustle.
But it wasn't surprising. I knew it was coming at some point. That's fine. Well, I don't really leave per se. This is not the same kind of vacation, so I'm not away for that long. Like what it more or less is here's where I'm at with this. So Friday night I am at a concert. Now, will it happen during the concert? I don't know about that. Usually these things tend to happen during the day. This is a nighttime thing, so I don't feel like it's going to happen. You can pull it back up. Go ahead. We already mentioned it before on a previous episode.
Yeah, you're right.
So I'm at that concert on Friday, but it's later.
I'll be there also.
But it's later in the day, so I'm not as worried. Like to me, if you're dropping a signing on a Friday at 5:00, you're really dropping it at a weird time.
You're trying to hide it, and that's not. This isn't a signing you try to hide. You sign Tony D'Angelo at 5:00 on a Friday. You don't sign Travis Sanheim at 5:00 on a Friday.
Sure. But anyway, so you got that. And then it's the next 2 days that worry me to an extent, because you got a Saturday morning where things could happen.
I can assure you, this news will drop the second you're the busiest.
Well, this is the challenging part because the thing I'm going to, it's the last 2 days of a festival that's down the shore.
Nice.
And nothing really starts with this thing until like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So I have time, but in order to go to the show on Friday,
1:05 on Saturday.
If that really happens, I'm going to be really
Chuck
pissed
Fletcher's press conference will be at 1 o'clock on Friday.
Okay,
or on Saturday.
All right, here's the deal then. If something happens, I will be more than willing to relay some of the news. I will try my best to produce an article potentially. But here's what I will say: if there is a press conference that afternoon, I will probably not be on it.
Okay.
Because
But you will tweet about it.
Right. Absolutely. Well, look, I tweeted yesterday about that they signed their top draft pick, and it was literally like I was literally getting ready to walk out the door to go to my parents yesterday, but it's not big enough that I got to write a whole story on it. Like literally, I mean, the kid got announced as their pick, as Cam Atkinson got traded for Jake Voracek.
Right.
I almost don't even know if people knew who the guy's name was because of the fact that it.
Well, it's also not the easiest to pronounce.
No, I don't think so. Samu Tuamala.
Not the easiest.
It's a Finnish name. They'll get used to it.
Yeah, he's that Finnish guy.
But regardless, so
I can't wait to hear Jim Jackson say it. That's how I'll say it forever. So get it right, JJ.
Do you know what's really funny, by the way? Speaking of which, because I sit there, people. One of the last games before the pause. So one of the last games of the full building at the Wells Fargo Center. Flyers are playing the Buffalo Sabres, and Ristolainen had two wonderful moments that are captured on film. One of them is passing the puck back to his goaltender, so Joel Farabee can take over after a turnover and score what basically was the goal that sealed the game. And then Ristolainen totally decked Justin Braun into the boards with like 16 seconds left. Ironically, the first guy who got to him to go after him was Robert Haig, literally the guy who got traded
That's
for
funny.
him. But at the same time, like I sit there and I go, how's that meeting in the locker room? Here's Rasmus Ristolainen. Hey,
Bronner, remember when I buried you?
Yeah, remember when I totally buried you at the end of a game?
A meaningless, decided game.
Right. It was so fun. So that's the type of stuff I do when I have nothing else to do. Is I go back and I find stuff like that. But
that's funny. All right.
But regardless, so yeah, we'll see. I don't know when this Sanheim thing's gonna break. It will happen. Maybe it does happen over the weekend. I don't care.
It will definitely be at the least convenient moment for you, but you'll still tweet about it. So make sure to follow him at Kevin_Durso.
Here's the catch. They only have 3 shots then. Because other than that, there really is nothing not convenient.
Fair enough. Well, we'll see. It'll be one of those times for sure. Follow him on Twitter at Kevin_Durso. Make sure to follow the podcast at YWT Podcast. You can find us anywhere you find podcasts, including sportstalkphilly.com. And I think that's just about going to do it for today. 2 weeks from now, we're going to have a summer show.
We're going to need to really get creative. We're going to have Travis Sanheim's contract.
Well, we'll have concert recap. Don't worry.
Well, like I teased, we're going to have to actually be able to put a bow on the off season. It's the you know what? It's the first September show that's going to get.
Oof. Yep.
There's going to be nothing.
All right. One more August show, and then we'll get there. And until then, see you guys later.